For millions, the outdoor boys represented freedom, resilience, and the quiet beauty of life in the wild. Their videos showed a family thriving in snowstorms, forests, and frozen isolation, turning hardship into inspiration. But behind the peaceful campsites and survival triumphs, a far more fragile reality unfolded. Physical exhaustion, emotional strain, relentless pressure, and the invisible cost of constant exposure slowly reshaped everything. What looked like adventure masked a deeper reckoning, one that forced life-altering choices and revealed the hidden toll of living forever on camera. From the earliest videos, the outdoor boys appeared to live a life most could only dream of. Snow-laden forests stretched endlessly behind them, frozen lakes mirrored the pale winter sun, and tents pitched against the wind seemed almost heroic in their simplicity. At the center of it all was Luke Nichols, a father whose calm authority and meticulous planning transformed ordinary survival into something cinematic, almost mythic. His children, brimming with curiosity and determination, followed each command, learning the rhythms of the wilderness, the precision of fire building, and the patience required to endure the cold. Every frame conveyed not just skill, but a philosophy of resilience, a quiet insistence that humans could thrive in nature if they respected it and themselves. The channel began humbly. Luke filmed their weekends, capturing the essence of adventure with little more than a handheld camera and a notebook of survival plans. The simplicity was its own charm. Viewers witnessed the family chopping wood, cooking over open flames, and constructing emergency shelters with ingenuity born of necessity. The outdoor boys taught practical knowledge: how to start a fire in snow, how to navigate with a compass, how to read the subtle signs of changing weather. But they also imparted something less tangible. They showed courage, patience, and interdependence, a family bound not by convenience but by shared challenge. Audiences connected instantly. Comments poured in, praising not just the skills, but the warmth of family dynamics, the laughter amid hardship, the way even children could demonstrate competence and calm under pressure. But as the channel's reach expanded, so too did the demands. Millions of subscribers watched with expectation, their interest measured in views, likes, and shares. What began as weekend adventures evolved into expeditions spanning days, sometimes weeks, in environments most adults would consider perilous. Cameras multiplied, scripts emerged, and Luke's planning became increasingly precise. Safety, creativity, and storytelling all had to coexist under a microscope of public scrutiny. Every mistake, no matter how minor, was visible. The family's private life was gradually entwined with performance. The wilderness was no longer a playground. It had become a stage, one with stakes measured in both physical safety and audience approval. Behind the scenes, challenges grew heavier. Travel through frozen backcountry tested endurance. Snowstorms threatened both gear and morale, and the children's energy had to be balanced against exhaustion and learning. Luke carried the compounded responsibility of family safety, channel growth, and public perception. Every outing required foresight and contingency, yet the unpredictability of the wilderness ensured that perfection remained forever just out of reach. The very freedom that viewers adored, the wide-open forests, the stillness of snowy landscapes, was a double-edged sword. Each adventure offered inspiration but demanded sacrifice. Yet even in the cold, the hardships were framed by moments of profound beauty and connection. A child's first successful fire, a shared laugh while trudging through knee-deep snow, the quiet awe at a frozen waterfall. All of it cemented the channel's emotional resonance. Audiences felt invited into a world where skill met humanity, where survival was not just a test of strength, but of heart. And yet, beneath this rising tide of admiration and growth, there was a subtle, almost invisible strain. The public success masked the private tension, the creeping fatigue, and the relentless push for excellence. What had begun as a simple dream was evolving into something larger, heavier, and more complex. The wilderness adventure that inspired millions was quietly reshaping the family's reality, and the weight of expectation was beginning to settle into every snow-caked boot, every frozen hand, every long night of editing and planning. But beneath the rising success, an unseen strain was building, one that would soon force irreversible decisions. What had begun as joyous exploration now carried the weight of expectation. With millions of viewers following every step, the Outdoor Boys faced a new reality. Adventure was no longer optional. It was an obligation. Luke Nichols felt the shift acutely. The quiet weekends of discovery had been replaced by meticulously planned expeditions designed to impress, educate, and entertain. Every outing demanded precision. Every video had to balance drama with authenticity, and the relentless pressure to innovate grew heavier with each upload. What once felt like liberation now resembled a chain of responsibility. The environments themselves became unforgiving. Deep snow, icy rivers, and frozen forests were no longer scenic backdrops. They were obstacles that required constant vigilance. The children, previously playful and curious, now faced fatigue and discomfort that crept quietly into their daily routines. One wrong step in a snow-covered ravine or a misjudged ice crossing could have severe consequences. Yet the cameras never paused. Luke filmed, directed, and managed safety simultaneously, a balancing act that left little room for error. Every moment was measured, every scene choreographed, every smile captured against the underlying tension of survival. Physical strain became unavoidable. Early mornings, long hikes, and exposure to bitter cold left bodies aching and spirits fraying. The mental load, however, was heavier still. Luke carried the responsibility of safety for his family, accountability to viewers, and the pressure of financial sustainability. Behind the cheerful faces in each frame, there was quiet exhaustion. Muscles worn, skin chapped, energy drained, and hearts stretched thin. The wilderness had revealed its duality. Beauty and danger, freedom and obligation, thrill and weight. The emotional cost extended beyond the immediate demands of survival. The presence of cameras subtly altered interactions. A child's natural hesitation or fear became something to manage carefully, a moment to frame or edit. Family connection became intertwined with production requirements. Laughter had to be genuine but camera-ready. Fear had to be real but controlled. Every experience was filtered, consciously or not, through the lens of performance. The very act of being observed amplified pressure, creating an invisible tension that the audience could sense but not fully see. Yet the channel continued to grow. Subscribers multiplied, engagement soared, and sponsorships arrived. Success demanded escalation. Luke experimented with longer trips, harsher weather conditions, and increasingly complex survival challenges. The adventures that once embodied learning and curiosity now demanded endurance, courage under pressure, and the constant management of risk. The joy of exploration had not disappeared entirely, but it had been layered with anxiety, vigilance, and expectation. The transformation was subtle but undeniable. The wilderness dream that had inspired millions was beginning to exact a personal cost, one measured in fatigue, strained bonds, and quiet moments of doubt. The family's resilience was being tested, not by nature alone, but by the compounding weight of fame and expectation. What viewers saw as triumph was, behind the camera, a delicate balance of survival and performance, joy and responsibility. As exhaustion mounted, the family faced a question that would redefine their future. How much sacrifice was too much? The snow-covered forests and frozen lakes had long been the Outdoor Boys' stage of triumph. Yet behind the cameras, the reality was far more fragile than anyone could imagine. Years of relentless filming, harsh conditions, and unyielding schedules were beginning to leave traces. In body, in mind, and in the subtle shifts of family dynamics. Muscles ached constantly. Fingers and toes were perpetually numb. Sleep was broken by early morning treks and late-night editing sessions. Every day demanded endurance, but the strain was cumulative, a weight that no medal of views could offset. It was not only physical exhaustion that haunted them. The emotional toll was deeper, less visible, but far more consequential. Luke carried a dual burden: the safety of his children and the expectations of millions who awaited every upload. The children, though brave and capable, were learning to mask fatigue, frustration, and fear behind smiles and laughter, understanding, even if unconsciously, that the camera demanded performance. The very act of being watched, even lovingly, introduced an invisible pressure that reshaped their behavior. Childhood, once spontaneous and carefree, became measured and deliberate. Every snowball, every stumble, every pause had an audience. Isolation added another layer of complexity. In the remote wilderness, the family was together physically, yet apart in experience. Each member absorbed the stress differently. Luke's careful planning concealed worry. The children internalized challenges they could not fully articulate. Even meals and rest were interrupted by cameras, schedules, and the unspoken imperative to keep pushing forward. What had once been adventure now demanded emotional resilience equal to physical endurance. The family began to notice subtle fractures. Arguments sparked more easily, patience thinned, and exhaustion colored interactions. Joy was still present but tempered by the constant awareness of responsibility and expectation. The wilderness itself, which had once inspired awe and curiosity, now amplified stress, revealing that survival was no longer a simple act. It was a delicate orchestration of body, mind, and camera-ready courage. And yet, the outdoor boys continued to persevere. Each trek, each frozen lake crossing, each storm weathered became a testament to resilience, but also a reminder of vulnerability. The dream of living freely in the wilderness had not disappeared, yet it was now interlaced with hidden costs that could no longer be ignored. Every mile traveled, every shelter built, every frozen night under the stars carried not only achievement but the quiet echoes of strain. And then came the decision that would alter everything, one that risked losing fame to save something far more vital. The turning point arrived not with a single dramatic moment, but as a quiet reckoning. Luke Nichols recognized that the relentless cycle of extreme survival and constant filming had reached a dangerous tipping point. The wilderness, once a sanctuary of learning and connection, had become a crucible of exhaustion, risk, and unspoken tension. Each expedition, while outwardly triumphant, demanded sacrifices that no audience could fully comprehend. The family's physical endurance had been tested to its limits, but the emotional cost had become far greater, subtle yet undeniable. Stepping back required courage of a different sort. Luke began making calculated choices. Trips became shorter, conditions less extreme, and challenges more measured. The focus shifted from spectacle to sustainability, from shock value to authenticity. Every decision was deliberate, balancing public expectation against private well-being. Cameras still rolled, but the lens no longer dictated the pace of life. The family reclaimed small moments of peace, warmth, and connection, understanding that the greatest adventure now was preserving themselves. Public reaction was unpredictable. Some viewers celebrated the change, valuing health, emotional balance, and the message of responsible exploration. Others expressed disappointment, longing for the daring exploits that had initially defined the channel. Luke understood both perspectives, but he prioritized a principle far older than fame, the survival and growth of his family above all else. The wilderness adventures remained, but they were no longer a test of endurance for viewers' thrill. They were exercises in learning, reflection, and measured curiosity. This transition revealed the delicate art of reinvention. The family embraced a new rhythm, one that allowed them to enjoy nature without being consumed by it. Children's laughter returned to its natural cadence. Conversations were no longer interrupted by editing deadlines, and the weight of performance began to lift. Yet the shift brought new uncertainty. Would the audience remain loyal, or would the channel lose relevance in the ever-accelerating world of social media? Success had been redefined, but its fragility was a constant shadow. Even as calm replaced chaos, Luke and his children understood that stepping away from extremes was only the beginning. The channel could survive, but only if they remained vigilant. They had learned that freedom was not measured by risk alone. It was measured by balance, resilience, and the courage to choose life over spectacle. With the extremes behind them, the Nichols family began to redefine what it meant to live and create in the wilderness. The channel, once fueled by spectacle and relentless challenge, now became a platform for reflection, education, and emotional authenticity. Luke's leadership evolved from orchestrating survival feats to fostering resilience and balance, teaching his children not only how to endure nature's trials, but how to understand themselves amidst pressure, expectation, and public scrutiny. Every video now carried layers of insight, small triumphs, quiet moments of laughter, and the subtle lessons of patience and humility. The audience witnessed a new dimension of the outdoor boys. No longer were viewers drawn solely to the adrenaline of survival. They were drawn to the humanity behind it. Children learned to navigate both wilderness and life with empathy, courage, and awareness. Luke and his family demonstrated that strength was not measured by endurance alone, but by the wisdom to recognize limits, the clarity to step back, and the humility to prioritize health, emotion, and familial bonds. The narrative shifted from conquest to stewardship, from display to legacy. This period of reinvention was not without challenge. The temptation to return to extreme scenarios lingered, and the pull of millions of viewers, sponsorships, and viral metrics remained strong. But the Nichols family chose differently. They prioritized sustainability over spectacle, growth over immediacy, and emotional truth over audience expectation. Each expedition was a deliberate act of education and connection rather than endurance. They demonstrated that real adventure lies in understanding one's own limits and the courage to protect what truly matters. Through this transformation, the Outdoor Boys became more than a channel. They became a lesson in resilience, responsibility, and redemption. Their story was no longer only about surviving nature. It was about surviving life under scrutiny, about finding balance in chaos, and about creating a meaningful legacy that extended beyond fleeting fame. The tragedies of exhaustion, emotional strain, and unrelenting pressure were acknowledged, but they became the foundation for something enduring. A family that thrived not despite hardship, but because they learned to respect it, navigate it, and emerge stronger together. The final lesson was clear: true strength is fragile. True adventure is measured not by conquest, but by awareness, care, and the courage to pause when the cost becomes too great. Fame and success can inspire, but they cannot replace the enduring value of life, health, and emotional connection. Because even now, the fragile balance between passion and preservation remains a battle never fully won.